evening, everybody. I want to thank Lavetta for her beautiful song to open tonight's events, and how difficult that must have been for her. Thank you. All right, so it's an honor to be here tonight on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples. And again, I want to thank Lavetta for her beautiful, beautiful song. That really set our evening up, and I appreciate that. I'm humbled to be with you all here today to honor and remember the more than 10,000 British Columbians who've died in the past 7 years as a result of drug toxicity. This is a sad day, and it's a hard day, like the birthdays of those we've lost and the anniversaries of their deaths. But we mark these days because they are acknowledgments that our loved ones were here and they mattered, and we miss them. So it's a tremendously important day. Since the advent of this health crisis, which started to build momentum in 2015, we've experienced loss after loss in communities and neighborhoods all across our province. For many of those who died, drugs were a method of coping with pain, whether physical or emotional. Some used drugs to cope with mental health challenges. Others, particularly younger users, used drugs occasionally as a recreational use. All of them fell prey to the province's catastrophic, profit-driven, toxic drug market. None of these people deserve to die. None of their families should have had to experience their devastating loss. So what have we learned during this crisis? We know it's being driven by illicit fentanyl. Increasingly, we're seeing instances of extreme fentanyl concentrations. Benzodiazepines and their derivative etizolam are further complicating the chaotic illicit drug supply. Benzodiazepines do not respond to naloxone. The rate of death in BC has quadrupled since 2015, and drug toxicity is now the second leading cause of death in terms of potential years of life lost. The average age of those dying from toxic drugs is 44. We've now experienced more than 7 years of heartbreak, anger, sadness, and pain. And yet out of that pain and anger, we have seen brave and determined individuals, all of you here, who are courageously doing so much to turn this crisis around. And we've heard from our expert panel of the initiatives that will save lives. Urgent access to a safer drug supply for those at risk, and a provincial framework for its distribution that includes both medical and non-medical models. A strategic framework with clear goals and targets for reducing toxic drug events and deaths, and an evidence-based system of care that identifies roles and responsibilities and links people to evidence-based services. Finally, the regulation and oversight of treatment and recovery programs to ensure they provide evidence-based quality care. These things are urgently needed. What else is making a difference? All of you and the experiences that you've shared and the changes for which you've advocated are having a tremendous impact on ending this crisis. You've been courageous in sharing the stories of your beloved family members and friends. You are breaking down stigma. You are refusing shame. You are helping our province understand how much has been lost in the deaths of our 10,000 community members. Your words, your stories, your passion, and your compassion are compelling a momentous shift in our provinces and our country's response to drug use and to those who use drugs. You are leaders, and you are demonstrating true leadership. You have taken your pain, and you are channeling it for kindness, compassion, caring, and evidence-based supports for those who use drugs. And change is happening. Calls for decriminalization were ignored by governments for many years. Decriminalization for personal use is now underway for BC. It's a start, and it's historic. It is recognition that punishment and marginalizing have only resulted in harming good people. Decriminalization is a recognition that help, support, and compassion are the way forward. Safe supply is increasingly recognized as the only way to end the terrible risks facing those using street trade drugs in our province. The 4 federally funded safer supply programs in Vancouver and Victoria are showing us that it can be done. Safer supply means the drugs people take will be appropriately dosed and not laced with the numerous and life-threatening substances we see in the street supply. Safe supply is not nearly as accessible as it needs to be for those at risk in BC, but it is another critical component of a resolution to this health crisis. So often when I'm speaking publicly, it's to intone more tragic news, as Leslie mentioned, and there has been so much tragedy. But we have to have hope. We know that voices make a difference, and commitment to a cause can make a difference. So I extend my sincere thanks and my admiration to all of you. You are making a difference. You are speaking up for your loved ones. You are changing the trajectory of this crisis. Thank you for your advocacy, for your caring, and your dedication. You are making a difference, and you will save lives. Thank you.